Redditors who took terrible advice from r/relationship advice. What happened? Knowing Reddit, someone posts on the wrong sub asking how to make sourdough and winds up in therapy, divorcing their spouse. I didn't follow the terrible advice that they gave me. I posted there once basically to rant that my girlfriend and her roommates had given a temporal home to a street dog, and now that they had to move, the roommates wanted to get rid of the dog, put it to sleep, or put it back in the street because their new apartment didn't accept pets. So I took the dog in my home, and I was stressed because it was the first week and the dog was a handful and the roommates didn't care at all. Relationship advice? Give the dog to a shelter because you will never love it, and break up with my GF because she's a horrible person and you will resent her. A user literally said this is the beginning of the end of your relationship. What did I do? Talk with my GF. Tell her I felt frustrated and that I really disliked that she and her friends had taken the dog out of the streets without thinking of the future. She told me she understood that and that she was going to pay for everything the dog needed until we, as a couple, could move in together, but that she wasn't going to act like the dog wasn't her responsibility. 2 years later, she has always paid for the food, vet, checkups, everything. And we are moving in together soon and taking the dog with us. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't listen to that terrible advice. Edit. Apparently you can't mention a dog in Reddit without posting pics, so here's a picture of my dog https://inga.com//a/301t7 meters. On one hand, they helped me get the courage to leave a legitimately toxic relationship. Dude was super controlling and manipulative and was cheating on me the entire time. Then again, I also consulted with other people in my actual life like my parents and friends. On the other hand, they also told me to just walk up and kiss without asking my best friend whom I had a crush on. I was asking how I should talk to him about my feelings in a way that wasn't going to be awkward if he didn't feel the same. Also, asked opinions on if a guy I was talking to was planning on ghosting me. Everyone assumed he was seeing another woman and that I should just let him go. Ended up asking him instead, and turns out he was having trouble with his anxiety and depression, and that he was too afraid to talk about it with me because he didn't want to scare me away, and that he wasn't just neglecting me. He was very appreciative that I asked him what was going on. I read the posts when I can't sleep at night, but have never/will never post. It's like a soap opera over there. I never posted, but used to read stories on there all the time. I eventually had to stop because I started getting overly suspicious about my husband. It was ridiculous. I was constantly looking for red flags in our relationship and ended up being the red flag. I haven't been back on there in years. I posted years ago because my then BF and I had a fight. He was religious, I wasn't, and the fight seemed to be about that. Reddit told me to break up. This wouldn't work out. What I didn't realize was that we didn't fight about religion, but about our expectations of our relationship. Once we got that behind, we had a great time. We got married last week, after 6 years together. Edit. In case you wonder if this is just some made up sob story, https://inga.com/a/l1knock19 edit. Dumbus me wrote r/instead of you/. Saw a kid posting about how he wasn't getting along with his parents. They were making him work or something normal parents do, and Reddit told him he should basically confront them and tell them off. Next update post said that they kicked him out of the house. Not positive, but I think the Reddit lynch mob dropped the ball on that one. That sub's weird af. Like there will be people saying to break up before communicating, and some people will say to stay and give a toxic relationship a chance. And they get upvoted, while logical replies get downvoted lol. I hit the lawyer, deleted the gym, and hired Facebook. I didn't take the advice provided. I asked for help and tips into making a relationship healthy and how to communicate properly, as my parents had a very toxic relationship and I don't have much of an idea of what an actually healthy relationship looks like. I included a bit of my parents' relationship as an example of what I want to avoid. My boyfriend treats me amazingly, and he's an absolute precious sweetheart. I made sure to include this in the post to avoid having to deal with some misconceptions. Well, guess what? I got told over and over to break up and to leave my boyfriend, that if it would be a good relationship I wouldn't have to ask for advice. Some people straight up told me that my parents' relationship is great and I should follow their footsteps. My father is a physically abusive alcoholic and my mother a mentally abusive one. No fucking thank you. After about 20 comments telling me to leave this wonderful man and encouraging a lot of the negative behavior shown from my parents, I just deleted the post and took a long ass break from that subreddit. Still in a relationship. We are doing slightly better than we were during that time. Still rough, but hey, who said relationships are easy? I wasn't the one getting advice. My girlfriend was. We had been together 6 years. Honestly, it had been long distance for a year. We were drifting apart. It definitely wouldn't have lasted regardless. But I went to her place for the weekend. Again. Long distance at that point, so that's the only time I'd see her, and she point blank said it was over. There would be no changing her mind. It isn't up for discussion. Go home. It's kinda crazy, but I knew she used Reddit, but I didn't, and didn't know what it was. A couple months later I started using it, and found her by random coincidence. She was commenting on a news article directly related to her team at a university, and based on the username there's no way it could have been anyone else. I made the mistake of looking at her profile and seeing she was very active in relationship advice, and once I learned how that place operates it all made sense. This was about 6 years ago at this point and it still affects me. After that much time, I feel I was at least owed the honest discussion of we need to try to fix this. She was such a major part of my life that it really fucked me up for a while. I almost lost my job due to constant panic attacks, just generally being super unstable, etc. Again, it never world lasted anyway, but those assholes telling her to immediately break all ties with me hurt me worse than anything in my life, and it still has lasting effects. God, I never go on that sub anymore, because everyone's solution is just to break up, even if it's something small like not getting a haircut. Well, if he doesn't want to cut his hair for you, that means he doesn't value you or care about you as a person. Break up with him. Like, I wasn't even complaining about his long hair though. Boring story. Sorry. I posted looking for advice regarding a girl I was getting close with, but who wasn't ready for a relationship. The advice was actually pretty decent. Take care of your own feelings first. It might not be the right timing for you to. etc. Well, we're not in a relationship and we are not the same kind of close anymore. Oh well, such is life. We are still good friends though, so I think it turned out the best way possible. Granted, I had a pretty run-of-the-mill relationship problem and was looking for a place to vent and get some sound advice. So I'd say it served its purpose for me. I feel like I have never gotten terrible advice, but however was terrible at executing the advice, therefore ending any chance I had at having the relationship happen. Please tell me I'm not the only one who feels this way. That sub is the biggest shithole, but I mean your fault if you let personal stuff be decided by 10-year-old trolls on Reddit. LMAO. Sorry, I don't take advice from Redditors. I only take advice from psychics. And you know what they told me? I needed to communicate more with my partner. Lol. I've seen some people get real help, they're getting a push to run from a toxic partner, and that is good. But lately I felt like it's not a good place for someone like me who's never sure of their relationships and feelings you might get swayed too easily. It reminded me that the only opinion that truly matters is mine. Posted using a throwaway account about how my family doesn't like that my boyfriend isn't like my sister's husband. I'm glad I took the advice to stick to my guns, as it turns out my brother-in-law is a shitty person at times. And I mean, it's like my sister contemplated divorce levels of bad. My parents realized that my boyfriend isn't that bad after all, and they accept him now. It wasn't relationship advice, but it was another online advice thing called Life. Basically, when I first started seeing my boyfriend, I noticed he was paying a little less attention to me. He did have a lot point going on at the time as well. Also, things get less intense after a bit, and I do have a habit of overthinking until I panic. He said he'd come with me to pick up a bike, and I was calling and messaging him all day, but couldn't get a response, and I was starting to run out of time till I had to go. One person just said, "You need to end it. He doesn't respect you enough," basically. He responded just in the nick of time for me to pick him up to get this bike, and immediately when he got in the car and saw how upset I was, he apologized and explained because he had stayed late to help pack up after a big event, which I know was true because I had stayed to help for a bit too. It ended up going on way longer than expected, and with everything else, he had just been so exhausted he slept through his alarms, my phone calls, etc. It's over a year later now and we are fine. Just moved into a house together. We have problems sometimes, but we have this foolproof system called talking about it. Really groundbreaking stuff. Pioneered in the last 2 years. We're early adopters.